Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. It's your hosts Iain and Gary.
Hello.
And today we're joined by Geoff.
Hiya.
And today we're going to review and discuss 2006 movie The Lives of Others. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Stasi agent Weisler, who is assigned to spy on a playwright, George Dryman, because they suspect him of dealing with illegal articles in a magazine. This is all a ploy, actually, because there's a fat cat politician who is madly in love with Dryman's girlfriend and wants to get Dryman out the way so that he can have the girlfriend to himself.
Bei dem ist was faul, das sagt mir mein Bauch, und der lügt nicht.
Weisler is assigned to spy on him and obviously breaks into Dryman's apartment, bugs it completely, and then spends his days listening and recording everything that Dryman does.
Yeah, a bit of a classic, this film, isn't it? It's 1984, I think the time is set, so there's a little bit perhaps of a nod to, the old 1984 film. But this film, right from the beginning, right at the moment you enter into this film, the stage is set and you're introduced to Weisler, who is giving a lecture to a classroom.
Die Gegner unseres Staates sind arrogant. Merken Sie sich das. Wir müssen Geduld haben mit ihnen. Etwa 40 Stunden Geduld. Spulen wir ein wenig vor.
And he's actually giving a lecture about interrogation techniques. But I can say that within 30 seconds, the actor that plays Weisler enraptured me. He had a mannerism and a posture about him and an intensity which was bang on. He must have been familiar with agents and the mannerisms and the way they interrogate people and the way they analyse and look at people, the way they look around the room, and he held that and he captured that brilliantly. And within just a few seconds of that film, you're instantly locked into this guy because he's really switched on and he's top police, he's got those real core police instincts.
The thing that struck me, especially with the opening of the movie, is the fact that it's a very tense interrogation that it cuts back to.
Tag gemacht haben. Warum müssen Sie ihn so lange wach halten? Ich meine, das ist doch unmenschlich.
And it's not, your typical Hollywood interrogation scene. There's no smug one-liners, there's no comedy in there, there's no punch-ups or violence necessary. It's just the fact that he just is so intently staring at him and quizzing him and asking him and repeating the same question over and over that you just watch this man just crumble, sat on this chair. And it is the fact that he reminds him to sit on his hands again. It's just, that pressure that is just applied. It really brings you and captivates you into the film, especially that lead actor. It was phenomenal throughout the entire film.
See, the opening is quite savage. You watch the interrogation sequence and then you watch Weisler in the classroom and the children, the class are asking Weisler, questions. Is this inhumane? Shouldn't you stop this? How do you know that this guy isn't telling the truth? And you can just see Weisler just marking them down. You're not going to pass. You're not going to pass. Then his government friend comes in and hands him the assignment to spy on Dryman. And that sequence where where he watched Dryman leave his apartment and then just marked what times they could get in there, and then you just see him bang on that van and mark 20 seconds, and the way they all just move in there and start lining the walls with microphones and wires, and he goes up into the attic and he sets up his own recording equipment. Made me wonder, how many places I've been to and people are watching me.
It was a precision operation, and you got to see them do it that swiftly. And you've got to imagine if they were doing it that swiftly now, you can only imagine what our governments might be capable of doing now, which is something that obviously this is based in reality, and there are a lot of scenarios like this now. So it would actually play on your common fears of Big Brother watching you.
Yeah.
But as a voyeuristic point of view that this film explores, you are following the Stasi agent who is, throughout the movie, watching another couple.
Yeah.
And it's a fascinating investment that he makes into their lives, which we then make as an observation of him watching them.
Yeah, well, Weisler, I found it hard to follow him from the beginning of the film, because it's a very deep government is watching you movie, but halfway through it actually becomes just like a normal typical movie. You know, Weisler is the hero, and after a while he starts to protect the couple from the government and this fat cat bureaucrat, and you know, helps them get away with certain things that they are doing to actually bring the government down. So I started to actually really start to warm to Weisler.
There's a very nice transitional moment in the film where that moment starts to happen, and it's the routineness of their shifts when they swap over.
Yeah.
And he's always irritated that the other person's like 4 to 5 minutes late, and he just wants to get out. And then there's a point where he's sat there, and the other guy comes in to take over a shift, and he's just like, you know what, I just want to stay.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave this couple alone. I just want to keep watching them, just because of his curiosity, because of his investment, or possibly an unplayed storyline, which is perhaps that he might have also fallen in love with the actress, and would therefore be looking for an angle to maybe separate them also, because there's that peculiar scene where he's left and he's seen them have an argument, and he goes to the bar that she's at, and he tells her that, you know, we are your audience, you know, you should be performing because that's when you feel more like yourself, and it's only an insight that somebody could have watching someone. So there's a very stalkerish creep factor there to it, but I also think it is very wonderfully played and explored. There's so many nuances to the human emotion throughout all of these little scenes.
I was going to say, this film rides the light fantastic between, and I must say the research in this film must be fantastic, because I mean, they've got out the archives, and they had them, like, they were depicted all the original archives where all the files on all the people were being kept. This is real life. This is real life East Germany, and the Stasi agent Weisler is just like a real agent. You know, they've got everything's to a T. But in the stark contrast of the machinery of the state, we have a policeman who genuinely believes in socialism and genuinely believes in what he's doing, and that what he's doing is of benefit to society, who then, he's so regimented and so like, boom, you know, does everything by the numbers. He does all his files. When he's doing the surveillance, he doesn't seem to sleep. He just, like, his eyes are wide open. He's like an owl all the time, just watching everybody. He goes to a theatre play and he spends all his time watching the director and watching anybody he thinks he's suspicious of, and he's not even really there for the play. But coming through all of it, through this machinery, is the humanity of the people that are involved in it. And Weisler becomes the case in point, the shining beacon of the human side of the whole system. Because upon listening to the lives of others and also coming to terms with the fact that what he's doing isn't necessarily for a social good, it's actually for political maneuverings. He begins to realise that there's one iconic moment where he talks to a little kid runs into the lift, and he's like, "Oh, are you really a Stasi agent?" And he sort of dismisses it and says, "Oh, why'd you ask?" And he says, "Oh, because my daddy says that Stasi are bad men who put people in prison." And he's having a crisis of conscience at this moment, and he goes to ask the kid, "Oh, really? What's the name of your father?" And he stops himself.
Mein was?
Ball. Wie heißt denn dein Ball?
Du bist aber komisch, Bälle haben doch keinen Namen.
Realising that he is the bad man who is trying to put people in prison. And but the beauty is that in that character, he's not doing it for those reasons. He's not a control freak, he's not a power maniac. He does it because he genuinely believes he's fighting some kind of evils of society. And that they contrast that this film. That's the thing about this film, is it doesn't really make a moral statement. It just exposes the realities of what things were like for people in those times.
It is a very good observation of the way of life as well. Even though you only get an insight into perhaps the rich and wealthy, or the artists, you don't really get to see much of the other culture that's going on. But you feel it just because of the way the actors are so expressive throughout the movie. It completely sets that atmosphere. But what I find it fascinating about this film is the fact that they would choose to depict a member of the Stasi as this robot and then humanize him throughout the movie.
Well, I think that came in when Draymond, he forced Draymond to see his girlfriend come back as she gets out of the limo, and she goes and she climbs straight into the shower. So obviously Draymond is suspicious that something has gone on, but you see the breakdown of her, and then you see her curled up into a ball on the bed, and she just asks Draymond to hold her. And then Weisler leaves because the shift has ended, and he goes back to his apartment, which is completely bare of emotion. It's just a place he goes to sleep, and he hires a prostitute, and obviously he has sex with her, but he asks her to stay because he just wants to be held. He wants to start to feel emotion as the two people are that he's watching. But she's just like, oh, I've got another appointment, I have to leave. And he's left there, but then it starts to come out more when he steals Draymond's book, and then he helps them get the person across the border, and he helps them hide the typewriter. But yeah, he really just starts to open up and want to be human.
Yeah, and it is a fantastic transformation that he goes throughout the film. Like I said, it is multi-layered, and there's so many things throughout the film that just might seem trivial or small, and to some respects, to the majority of audiences, you might actually find the film very dull and boring. And that's because it is, but I will say, it is a finely crafted movie that, with a pure, clear vision from the director as to the focal point and the message that this film is delivering, literally is in the closing seconds of the movie.
Yeah.
It is so poignant and so emotionally wrought that you will be moved come the end of this film, and after following the transformation. It is fantastic. It really is.
See, it's a good film for people who are wanting to find that, if they're wanting to find depths of characters and background story that is just limitless. I wouldn't say everybody would be able to sit down and watch this film. If you're just coming off the back of The Lone Ranger with Johnny Depp, there is no way you're going to survive the lives of others. But if you're ready for a film like this, you will not be disappointed. You'll follow Weisler from the beginning. You'll question his character, but once he starts to become more human, and following Draymond and his girlfriend, they were an awesome couple. I thought I really felt for the girl, especially later on when she's picked up forcibly because of her drugs and taken to the interrogation room. But then Weisler comes in.
There's the scene where she's starts getting groped and basically, effectively raped by this guy that's got his designs on her. This government official who is instigating the whole surveillance process. And there's the moments just after that happens, because Weisman's character gets involved, and he's like, time to have some home truth, so he shorts out the bell, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So that George Draymond comes down at the moment, so he knows what's happening. And then of course Weisler is all party to what happens after this sort of basically rape of this woman, and how Draymond is, all the characters in this film, Maria Zealand's character, at first you think maybe she's not going to start out as strong, but things happen to this artist and his girlfriend that really also mean that the film gets to focus on their character as well. So and there are all sorts of things where because you're also feeling for the artist and this woman, and they portray the events that happen to them brilliantly, you also then, because Weisler is so vivid in your mind, you really feel like you are the observer on this whole thing, and you begin to go through a similar process that Weizmann goes through, where you start to begin to empathise with all elements in all the parties, and you really start to you start to think, what is Weizmann going to do? Because you're like, you can't just stand by and see this kind of injustice going on, and then know that you're working for that kind of thing.
Noch ein Rat. Wir sind nicht mehr in der Hochschule. Bei Projekten geht es nicht um Noten, sondern um Erfolg.
The thing is, though, I mean, Weisler and Maria, they were both, in a way, protecting Draymond. She's protecting Draymond from the government official, and Weisler is protecting Draymond from, obviously, more government officials. And Draymond is completely oblivious to all this going on. His actual friends are, anti-government, and they're all kind of getting themselves into trouble. And he kind of avoids that to a point. And then something happens to his friend, and he decides, enough is enough. I'm going to make a stand. And that I think is a major turning point for the film itself. We've already had a turning point for Weisler's character to help Draymond, but Draymond stops the wheel of the corporations and governments and says, enough's enough. And then obviously it builds up.
He has a turning point himself, doesn't he? Because Draymond is effectively clean to start off with.
Yeah.
They can't pin anything on him. Draymond is a good socialist by all accounts, but he associates with people that obviously don't believe in the system. But something happens where a friend of his commits suicide, and each of these characters have turning points, and that is kind of one of the things that I suppose is so what makes the film such good social commentary, is because by micro-focusing on elements of characters and how events under this system, how it affects people at the very base level, it really was able to make a proper commentary on what was happening on the large scale.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually have to go into any specifics. It's not an anti-surveillance film. It's not an anti-government film. It's not anything other than this is just the crazy way things work out when you have a system that's running this way. And I actually don't think you need to necessarily. I think if you come to this film coming from only ever having watched like real no-brainer action blockbusters, I think there's even enough in this film to have you interested again, because straight away the intrigue of the police and the whole kind of process of surveillance was interesting from the beginning. The interrogation enraptures you, like you see this guy break down just purely under the steady no like movement, no side swerving like gaze of this Stasi agent. And I think from anywhere you're coming from, this film enraptured me within seconds. And yes, it's not a fast-paced action film, but there is a continuous pace of evolution of the story and character development that means I think you'd find it hard not to stay interested. My favourite scene, to be honest with you, is the opening scene.
Yeah.
Because it sets the tone of the whole film brilliantly, and it introduces you to this character, and they show you enough shades of this character. So they show you his brilliant police intuition, but they also give you a tiny glimmer of his human side, and they also manage to show you that he's doing it for the right reasons in all of about 5 minutes of film.
Yeah.
And it's fantastically done. The opening scene, like I say, that just absolutely captured me. So that's got to be my favourite at the university.
I think one of my most memorable scenes from the movie is perhaps one of the most tense scenes, and it doesn't start off that way. It's when the two agents are having lunch, and they're sat down, and they interrupt. One of the other agents is cracking a joke about the east and the west side,
yeah,
and he gets interrupted and he's kind of flushed a little bit that one of his superior officers is listening in, and so he stops and he's trying to get back to normal, and the officer's like, no, tell your joke. And so he tells the joke, and so they all kind of nervously laugh.
Yeah.
And then the other agent's like, what's your name? What department do you work for? Do you like your job? And it's like, it's just the ruination on his face of the fact that his career in life is just over after this one joke. And then the cruel, sadistic bastard of an officer just lets on that was his own joke.
Yeah.
It's like, that is so vicious. But all along, you're still watching the main character's reaction to this as well, just to kind of see how tense the divide is within this government party.
Was ist der Unterschied zwischen Erich Honecker und Telefon? Hm? Na? Na, keiner. Aufhängen, neu wählen.
And for me, that set everything else in motion. Just that clear divide of the humour with the humanity.
Yeah.
It was really captured there.
See, my favourite moment. I had real difficulty picking one. As the film progressed, I was waiting for something good to happen to make me feel that that was the pinnacle moment. I did enjoy the other agent turning up and taking over from Weisler, because he was a bit more human, but seemed a bit more stupid as well. I got caught in traffic lights and I'm here early, hey. But it was the end sequence where the playwright has found out who Weisler was and obviously how he was helping him, and he releases a book telling his story, and Weisler walks into the bookstore and picks up the book and then reads the inside inscription, which is dedicated to him, and he just walks and he pays for the book, and he looks happy like he's done a good thing in his life. That was my favourite moment.
It's an incredibly poignant ending. It really is. And I think the after effects of that ending will stay with you for quite a while. I highly recommend The Lives of Others. I will go as far to say that this is, as of today, my favourite foreign language movie. I can't recommend that any higher.
So I recommend this movie, but at the same time, tread lightly. There's no massive gunfighting sequences. There's no massive, huge special effects. It is just the characters and the story, and that, for me, is the basis of cinema itself.
Yeah, I was going to say this is up there in my top 10 films because the character development, the pace of the plot revealing, and the depth and the number of bases it covers with such subtlety makes it a piece of art that's rare to find.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Darauf anstoßen. Die Flasche ist nämlich echt. Auf dass sie Gesamtdeutschland das wahre Gesicht der DDR zeigen.